Okay, in this assignment you're going to learn how to take raw TXT data, which is basically data that's put into a text file, and import it into either Microsoft Office Excel or Open Office Calculator. I want you to follow the directions, read the assignment completely, and make sure that you understand what it's asking you to do. This part of the video is going to show you how to actually go in and import that text into both of those spreadsheet programs. You're also going to pull the zip file from the web page and use that file. In this case, this file is actually just a raw text file, and it's in a executable zip file. If you double click on the Sacramento right here, it tells you that it's got a self-extractor on it. WinZip has this self-extractor. And if you hit OK, I want you to browse, and what this does is you're going to unzip it to a folder. I want you to put it at your desktop. I want you to put it somewhere where you can get access to it and remember where it's at. Hit OK, hit unzip, and it'll tell you that when the file's been successfully unzipped. You hit OK, close the window, and we're going to close that because we don't need it anymore. And we're going to go back to our program. This file looks like this, by the way. This is when you open this notepad file, this is exactly what it looks like. So imagine this is roughly about 136 years worth of data. Imagine, and it's 12 months for each year. So imagine trying to type each one of these into an Excel spreadsheet column, cell by cell by cell. Well, that would have a couple of problems associated with it. It's very time consuming. You'd want to kill yourself at the end of this because it just gets so frustrating. You can't copy and paste this and do it any quicker. And if you try and type this data, it just opens up a lot of room for error. So one of the things that we can do is we can actually let the program work for us. Open Office, Calculator, and Microsoft Excel both have the ability to import text. So I'm going to show you how to do it on both of those. So I'm going to come over here to Open Office. In Open Office, we have to go to Insert and then Sheet from File. So we're actually going to take the sheet and import it in. Okay, we could link it to external data, but we don't want to do that because that's something totally different. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select Insert Sheet from Data, and then I'm going to go find that document. Okay, and I remembered I put it on my jump drive, and it's called Sacramento, so I'm going to grab Sacramento right there, hit Insert. Now, this is where it gets a little tricky, and I want you to pay close attention. One thing that we can do is, I don't need this Sacramento precipitation information here, so I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to come down here and see where I want my information to start. And I noticed that row 9 allows it to start there. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to change from row 1 to row 9. So that means from row 9 down, I'm going to insert all that info. The next thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that I have some spaces here. These are where I want my columns to be set up. So I'm going to hit spaces, and then I'm going to hit merge delimiters. So I want to put these in their own little columns. So I'm going to merge my delimiters. I hit OK, and as long as everything looks okay, I don't care about this column being open right here because I'm going to need that. But I hit OK. It tells me it's going to put it in a new sheet from the file before my current sheet, and I hit OK. And notice that it put each piece of data in its own row and its own column. Now we need to follow the directions to put in months. We need to follow the directions and put in the year. You'll notice if I come here and I type in, I believe the data, it says it starts at, let's look at that. We're going to start in the year 1850, okay, and it ends in 1986. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back here, I'm going to type in 1850, click off, and if I click back in here and I start to drag this down, notice that it gives me the sequential year. So it's going to put my years in sequence here, so I don't have to do that. The other thing I don't want you to have to do is to type all this information. So I'm just going to drag this all the way down till I get to the end, and I know that I need to go to 1986. So I'm watching my little pop-up box down there that's telling me what my years get to, and there I have my years set up. I don't want to confuse that with this data, so I'm going to change its location. I'm going to center align this right now. The next thing I need to do is I'm going to have to insert a row. So I'm going to go to row 1, click, and I'm going to insert a row. And remember that when we go to insert rows and columns, whatever we selected inserts it in front of that row or in front of that column. So in this case it worked out pretty good. Remember here I can type JAN for January, click off, and then click back in there. And if I click and drag here, notice that it puts the months in for me. It assumes that by putting Jan in that you're talking about January. I could type out January, but I have to have enough of the month in there for the computer, for the program to recognize that I want that information. Okay? Then I want to go back and look at my directions, and I want to follow the directions and to make sure that I'm putting all the information in correctly. You're going to have to go in and put yearly totals, yearly precipitations, things like that. Those will be easy. What you need to do is, if you come in here, you want to do at the bottom of each monthly column, you want to figure out your average precipitation. And to do that, I'll show you one of the ways we can do it in Excel. So we're going to go back to our little thing here. So that means we're going to come all the way down here, and I'm just going to throw this in here for right now. And then I'm going to come here, and remember, one of the things that we want to do is we want to go to our function wizard. And we're going to click on our function wizard, and we're going to look for average. We're going to click that, we're going to hit OK, and it's going to say, well, what do you want to average? Okay. What I need to do is I'm going to come in here, select all this. Oops, not to that. Let's go back here, select all the way down. Whoops. Click, select all the way down. Let me say this also. Another way that I can do this is if I come over here, I should have said this in the first place. One of the things that I can do is if I click here, I can type average. Okay, and I can come in here and I can go, remember that we can go B2 through B138. Okay, hit enter, and it's going to give us the average. That's the quick way to do it. Otherwise we can go in and select all of this, but if I hit average, remember that what it's going to do is average everything from B2 through B138. So that's the easy way to do that. The other way is I can select function, go in, hit average, it'll bring the average up, and then I can select all this just like this and then allow it to average it for me. Okay. Once I've done that, I can bring this across, select this across, and remember that this function allows us to go in and average all the columns at once. I just have to make sure that this math right here up in the function line is correct. So equals, type in average, put your parentheses because that's our function. Then we're going to tell it what we want to average. So that's where we come in and do the B2 through B138. Okay. The same thing if we want to do minimums and maximums. If we come in and we want to take the minimums of something, we type in, we can type in the min here and do the same thing. If I come to this function, I hit equals, min, and notice I get the pop-up window that says, oh, you must want to min, you must want to find the minimum of something, and I do. So I want to open parentheses, and I'm going to go through, and what am I going to do? I'm going to say B2 through B138. Okay, hit enter, and it's going to give me my minimums. Now if I want to do max, how easy is that going to be? Well, again, I'm going to come here, I'm going to say max. Now follow the directions in the assignment, don't just do what I'm doing here. Follow the instructions, because it'll tell you exactly where to put this, because I believe your minimums and your maximums might be off to the side. And then if I put in max here, remember equal sign, max, here's my max function pop up right there. Open my parentheses. Again, I'm going to come in B2 through, put the colon in there, B138, close my parentheses, and this one is giving it to me across. I want to make sure that I'm doing it in the right location. So this one tells me that my maximum for that year was 15 inches. If I want to do it for the whole 130 years, right here is where I'll put my function, and in this case I would put equals max, and again we'll open our parentheses, B2 through, whoops, colon or semicolon, B138, close the parentheses, hit enter, and that gives me my max in there. Now just because those two are the same doesn't mean anything. We don't want, oh actually, let me backtrack. What I ended up doing was getting the same thing here because I put the same equation here as I did here. So that's the problem, is I went in and put this same equation here in N113 as I did right here in B142. So that just goes to show you have to really pay attention, because if we're not paying attention, what we're getting, the computer's going to do exactly what we tell it to do. So we have to be real careful when we do that. Okay, so if I want the minimums to go all the way across, all I have to do is, remember, go off to the corner down here, click and drag across, and it will give me my minimums. If I come here and I drag all the way across, it'll give me my maximums for those 130 years. Read the directions, because if it's looking for the average precipitation, the minimums, the maximums, right down here, look at those, because what you're actually going to do is put those on a separate sheet. Okay, so see here in row 2 of the new monthly average sheet, so you're going to be working on a different worksheet. But that just shows you how to do that. What I'm doing is showing you how to go about getting your minimums and your maximums. Because what you're going to do with those minimums and your maximums now is you're going to actually go in and create a chart. Okay, so pause it right now, do the first part of this exercise, set this all up, do the first part right here, 1 through 9, okay? Make sure that you go in and you put your average precipitation, your total yearly precipitation for the 12 months. The average precip goes at the bottom of each column. The total goes to the right of the column. So what that is right here, to the right here in this one, is going to be your yearly totals. So this is where you'll put yearly total. Okay, do those, and again, this is pretty easy. You know, we can auto sum this like that. Remember, we just want to grab these. We don't want A2 in there, we want B2 in there. Okay, so when you do your yearly totals, make sure that this equation is only B2 through M2, or whatever you're putting, whatever your columns are. Then we can click and drag this down. Once we know our calculation is correct, we don't have to worry about anything else. So once we do this, we can set this up and do our yearly calc that way. Okay, so stop the tutorial, do 1 through 9. Make sure you've got 1 through 9 set up. Freezing, let me go through that real quick. To freeze your cells, you've got to select the cell that you want to freeze. We're going to click right here. Go to window. If we hit freeze, notice what happens is as I move once I hit the row, it will freeze the row and either the row above me, or if I hit a column, it would freeze the column before the one that I selected. So I've hit row 2, hit window, and hit freeze, and that allows the top row to stay, so that as I start to move these columns up, I can see my yearly totals and I can see my months just fine. So that's one of those things that's very helpful for us, especially when we have large amounts of data. In this case, we have 130 years of data that we want to look at, but we want to know what months we're looking at. Okay, so go ahead, stop the tutorial here, and then when you come back we'll talk about how to chart our information. Okay, so now you've put in your yearly totals, you've done your average, you've got your mins, your max. What you need to do is make sure you change this sheet. Okay, rename it, right mouse click, hit rename sheet. I believe it says you need to name this Sacramento Precip. The next sheet is the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually take this information, these minimums, these averages, maximums, and we're going to actually turn them into charts. So if we look at the directions, it tells us now to come in here and take our monthly totals, so our monthly average from the original worksheet that we're going to label Sacramento, the worksheet that's labeled Sacramento Precipitation. We're going to copy the rows containing the months of the year to the average, to the monthly average worksheet. So let's do this. Before we get confused, I want to go ahead and change sheet number 1, rename it to monthly average. So we're going to be playing in the same ballpark, so to speak. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my worksheet over here to Sacramento Precip, and it tells me to grab the months of the year. So I'm going to grab those, I'm going to copy those, I'm going to Control C, grab that information. I'm going to go back to my monthly average, hit Control V, and I'm going to paste the dates. I'm going to go back to my Sacramento Precip page, and according to my instructions it tells me that I want to get my average precipitation row from the original worksheet and put it in the monthly average worksheet. So right here I'm going to go back to monthly average. I'm going to grab the average, and I'm just going to grab these numbers. I don't want average here, I just want the numbers for the average. I'm going to hit Control C, go to the monthly average precip page, and I'm going to click the first cell in the second row. I'm going to go to Edit and Paste Special, and I want to hit Link. I want it to link to the first sheet. The reason I want it to link is this. Anytime we link the information to the to another worksheet, if that information changes, wherever that information is linked also changes. So if there's a change that's made, let's say you're doing accounting and you've got a dollar amount that changes and you're using that dollar amount on several other worksheets, instead of having to go back and figure out where you need to change it, if you link it, it's automatically going to change for you. So let's make sure you hit link, hit OK, and we know that this is linked because it says equals, here's the absolute value. So this is the page we absolutely must get this value from. Okay, remember that dollar sign means that. And then we have Sacramento Precip, which is the name of the page or the worksheet. Then we have $B, $140, which means this is the input line. So let's go back and look. And if we look here, this is B140, and this is the Sacramento Precip page, and that's right. Now notice if this comes in here and this changes to, say, 5. Does it change this information? Probably not. But what if I went in here, I'm going to Control Z that. What if I went in here and changed this to 2.5? Does that change my info? It sure did. It dropped it down a little bit. So if I went back here and I looked, notice that if this changes, this changed too. So I went back and notice that this changed to 3.69. So I'm going to undo that. Let's go back to our sheet, make sure it got updated, and sure enough it changed back from 3.69 to 3.7. Okay, that's why we do this. Now I can come in here and select this info because it tells you to make a chart. So now I'm going to come here and I'm going to go to my chart wizard, and I'm going to select Insert Chart. It's going to take me a minute. I hit Select Chart, and it says, okay, so the first row is going to be labeled as the chart results in the worksheet, which says monthly average. Not a problem. I'm going to go next. And I can pick some charts here. So one of the things that I might want to do is look and kind of get an idea of what these charts would look like. What kind of information is it going to give me? So you want to make sure that when you're looking at this info that you're putting this info in a visual way. You're presenting this info in a picture that's easy to understand. Now, either one of these is going to work, because what we'll see here is the months, okay? Or we can put them in rows here if we wanted to, and this would give, as long as these are labeled, we're okay. So I'm going to hit that, hit next, and it's going to say, do you want Y grid lines? If I wanted X grid lines, I could have them. If I wanted my data series in rows, I could do that too, but we don't want rows. We don't want the data in rows because that's not going to give us anything. We'll hit next. This main title, okay, this is the chart title, and this is going to be monthly average. Okay, we can hit create, and it should put together a chart for us. So here's our chart, and we're going to grab this and drag it over here. So now what I have is my chart here set up with my monthly averages with this information. So I have my maximum total that I show in January. Now I could put a bigger number in there if I really wanted to, but it really doesn't matter at this point. Notice that the colors coordinate here. So I have this legend is big enough that I can see that January, February, March. So the colors coordinate with the colors that are here. And as I go through, I can see that all these colors coordinate with the chart. This gives me a good visual on what the rainfall looks like for that particular year, or for the average for those 130 years. If I wanted to go more in depth, I could probably come in here and make a change to rows and do some changes here if I wanted to. But for right now, this works because we know that these numbers, this is almost 4 inches, and we know that these correlate with these columns. So this turned out well. This isn't that hard to do as long as you make sure that you don't have any spaces selected. Okay, we can't have any empty spots, no empty columns and no empty rows, because then that screws up our calculation. Because remember, a lot of times we might be calculating on 100%, or we have a number that we have to calculate for, and if we have a column or if we have a row that doesn't have any information, it's going to be part of our calculation and it's going to skew our calculation. So we've got to be real careful that we have only selected the information that we want to chart. And remember, we have to select this information to chart it. Okay, so that's working pretty easily in OpenOffice. Okay, so if you want to pause this and work through OpenOffice, go ahead, because the next part of this tutorial will be for Excel. Okay, so you've opened up the text document, and we're going to go actually in here and we're going to open that text document that we looked for before. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go to where I have that Sacramento text saved. It's right there. I'm going to open this, and this looks pretty similar to OpenOffice, except we open this file in OpenOffice. Remember, we had to go to Insert Sheet from File. This one we just went ahead and went to File, Open. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to actually say I want this to start at row 9. Okay, so I come down here and I look, and my information is going to start here at row 9. I hit next, and this is where it gets a little different. We hit next, and we want to make sure that we have columns here. So we want to make sure that this column, this line represents a column. So we want to make sure that all our information has a line, a break line between it. We go next, and this is general information. We could turn it into text if we want, but we don't want to. We want to leave it general because we want to use these numbers. We're going to use these calculations. And we hit finish, and it did the exact same thing as OpenOffice did. The only difference is, look down here where it says Sacramento. It took that information and gave it a tab. So we have one tab there that we can use to start our information. Also notice that we don't have any other tabs. Okay, we don't have any other sheets in this section here. We only have this one sheet. So if we want to insert more sheets, we have to go to Insert Worksheet. Okay, and so we can do that easily enough. That's no big deal. We can do that pretty easy, and just move the worksheet over. So that's in Sacramento right there. You're going to do the same thing here. You're going to select this, right mouse click, and we're going to actually insert a row. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to, we inserted a column here. We're going to insert a row, selecting one, and go to Insert, and it inserts a row above us. We're going to put a text in here, but watch what happens if I put 1850 here. I click and I come back here and I select this. Notice as I move down, this is different. This is the one thing Excel is different at. It's not treating it as text. Okay, so what we need to do is we want to come in here, right mouse click, go to Format Cell, and change it to text. Hit OK. Now when I come in here and I type 1851 or 1850, click out, click back, and I come here and I start to move it down. Notice now that it changes it. I want you to do that first, because if you type the number in and you go to Format Cell and you try to do this, scroll down, it may not give it to you. And the reason is because you already put the number in there. You'll have to take the number back out, delete it, basically come back here and then type in 1850 again, and then go in, click off, click back in, and then scroll down. The green here doesn't mean anything. It just says, oh, you've got some problems here. Okay. In this case, we're filling the series. Don't worry about that. That's good. But the green means that it's formatted as text, and it's preceded by an apostrophe, or maybe it should be preceded by an apostrophe. We already know it's text. We want it to be text. That's okay. So don't worry about that green little comment box there. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Okay, ignore error. In fact, we probably should have done that there where it says we should have this. Whoops, I'm sorry. Let's go back up here. We come over to this, click here, hit ignore error, so that now when we go down and we start to pull this down, you know, we're still going to get the green box. It doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't. Okay, once you've done that, you're going to go through the whole series just like you did before. Remember that our yearly total right here, or our yearly total, we can just hit auto sum, which is here. And remember, it's gonna we've got the B2 through M2, just like we did in the other one. We click here, drag it down. It's going to do the exact same thing here. Give us the numbers. It's going to change those calculations for us, so we don't have to worry about it. You're going to do the exact same thing at the bottom with the minimums and the maximums, just like we talked about. And the calculation is exactly the same in Excel as it is in the other spreadsheet. So if I type in average here, okay, and then I'm going to go to my cell that I want the average to be in. Remember, we're going to type in equals average, okay, parentheses, and now we're going to say B2 through colon, okay, B138, close the parentheses, and in Excel, remember, it gives it to us, it sets it all up for us, so we don't have to worry about it, and there it is. If you get a big number like this, just right mouse click, go to Format Cells, okay, go to Number, and just have 2 decimal places, and it'll take that for you. Otherwise, it's just going to give you that real big number, and we don't really necessarily need that. Okay, if you have any questions, this is exactly the same. Follow the instructions for the Sheet 1, Sheet 2, and the charts. If you have any questions, email me, give me a call, or come by and see me, and I'll try and answer those questions for you. If you get stuck, go back, rewind the tutorial, and watch it again.